So what happens if, God forbid, there's a terrible accident and something terrible happens and you don't have estate planning documents in place? And I've used myself as an example. I'm an avid triathlete, so I'm out, riding my bike outside, I'm running outside, I'm swimming out in the ocean. God forbid, what happens if I'm hit by a car? And I've had actually a bad bike accident where I wound up in the hospital in the trauma unit. How does that affect my life? Or how does it affect my wife's life? How does it affect my kid's life? If you don't have documents in place that direct what kind of care you're going to receive or who can make decisions for you in the event that you can't make decisions, you've basically just set your family up to have to go to a probate court judge to have someone appointed as a conservator to make those decisions for you. So, for instance, if I'm out riding my bike and I get T-boned by a car and I get killed, all right, well, no problem if I'm killed, but no problem in the sense that my documents kick in and life goes on. But what happens if I'm laid up in the hospital and I'm on, a respirator and I'm in a coma and I'm not working? So my wife needs to raise money. And she goes down to the bank. We got plenty of equity in our house. And she says to the bank, okay, I want to take out a second mortgage on the house. Joe's been in a terrible accident. And the banker says, oh yeah, you got plenty of equity. Here are the documents. You sign here, have Joe sign over here. Well, Joe can't sign. Oh, well, I can't make the loan. We need Joe to sign. So if my wife has a durable power of attorney for finances that I've executed in the event that I can't make financial decisions, I've appointed her to do it for me. I just took the handcuffs off her to sign for that loan for me. So from a financial standpoint, the durable power of attorney for finances is really important to set up, your husband, your wife, or a child to be able to step in for you to make decisions, financial decisions for you in the event that you can't. And that document is called a springing power of attorney, meaning it springs into effect only when and if you're declared to be disabled by a doctor. So it's not like that person automatically has the power of attorney over you and your affairs. It only springs into action when and if you're disabled. And the same thing with your healthcare agency. Your healthcare agency is the same kind of document, with the counterpart being someone gets to make healthcare decisions for you. So again, in the event that I'm laid up in the hospital and I'm in a coma and the doctor says, well, Joe needs this kind of procedure, we need someone to sign informed consent. Well, I can't sign it, so my wife is going to sign, to have that procedure done for him. Or if they say, well, Joe doesn't have any brain activity, but, he's on a respirator and that's how he's going to have to stay for the rest of his life. My wife's got the authority to say, well, no, here I've got his power of attorney to remove him from a respirator because that's what he's decided, not to prolong life if, an event happens and there's no brain activity. So those documents are important as young people to make sure that someone is in place to make those decisions for you. In fact, when kids turn 18, I counsel parents to put these kind of documents in place for the kids before they go away to college if they're going to, because just because they turned 18 doesn't mean that you're automatically allowed to make decisions for them. You're not. They're adults. So if they don't have those in place, and God forbid something happens when they're 3,000 miles away, who gets to make those decisions for them? So we've got separate documents that we do for teens that are in that position, but they're equally important for us as young adults and young moms and dads to have someone in place. Because a lot of people, they say, well, I'm young, I don't need to have an estate plan. I worry more about planning for disability or incapacity than I do about death, especially with young people, because life happens. With older people, it's obvious you want documents in place to protect mom or dad in the event something happens to them health-wise. Obviously, if they've checked the box that says, I don't want this kind of treatment, you want to make sure that if God forbid they're in that position, that you can advocate for them. And a doctor, some of these doctors, they're very of their own mind. And if there's no documents, they may say, I'm going to employ everything possible to try to extend this person's life. And if you don't have any documents and you're in the hospital and have that kind of a doctor, well, you're at his mercy, so to speak. And if that's not what you want, well, then you need to have documents in place that put, a spouse or a son or a daughter in place of you in the event that you can't make those decisions for yourself, so that they can direct the hospital or the doctor to do what you want done. And actually, the doctors, they appreciate having it too. In the event that something like that happens and you don't have documents in place, and let's say, there's two, children that are not agreeing on what should be done, then a doctor just throws his hands up and says, well, I can't do anything. I don't, if I do, I'm going to get sued. If I don't, I'm going to get sued. So having those documents are really important for the doctors as well. Usually they'll take a copy of that healthcare agency and put it in your medical file so that all of the medical personnel know that A, you've executed the document, and B, more importantly, what your wishes are. And I tell people when they come into my office with respect to the healthcare agency, make sure you discuss the fact that you're signing these documents with whoever you're going to be appointing to act in your place. For two reasons. Number one, you want them to know that you're appointing them. And number two, you want to make sure that they can do whatever it is that you're going to ask them to do. And I had a client a couple of years ago, woman, no kids. Her husband had passed away. She had a cousin that lived in New York. And so she had a friend out here that was a really good friend. So when I was doing her estate planning documents, her and her friend came in and we had the conversation in my conference room, and her friend said, yeah, in the event that something happens, I'll be willing to do what she wants to do. And lo and behold, this woman wound up in the local hospital. No brain activity. Came time to the doctor, said, we want authority to remove her from life support. Her friend couldn't make the decision. Even though we went through it, that she knew she was in that position, she knew what the woman's desires were. And so I had to get involved. Her cousin back in New York was named as the secondary agent. I always suggest having 2 or 3 agents because if someone's not available. It took me an extra day to get the cousin in the loop to get authority to do it. So she only languished for an extra day, which was not a lot, but still that was a day that woman was languishing on life support that she didn't, her wishes were that's not what she wanted. So I counsel people, tell the people, whoever you're going to designate, that you're doing this, and ask them, you can have any problem doing what I would do if I could have made the decision myself anyway. That's just the better way to do it. But I worry more about incapacity now than I do about people passing away, because even with older people, it used to be when I was growing up, if family member had a heart problem, they went into the hospital, they tried to do heart surgery or whatever, they'd maybe come out, live for a little while and pass away, and that would be the end of it. Now, you go in for a quadruple bypass, it's like having an oil change on a car. I mean, come out, you're all done, and you continue, but you're affected by this, and so what I'm getting at is periods of disability are lasting a lot longer than they used to. And so having a plan in place for younger people, especially for older people, what happens to me if I become disabled? What happens to me if I have to go into an assisted living facility? Okay? I do what's called a personal care plan if clients want me to execute one for them. And a personal care plan, usually this is for older people. Let's say you're diagnosed with Alzheimer's or dementia. And you take someone like me. I'm Italian. I grew up, I like eating my Italian dinner. I like having a glass of wine with dinner. Well, guess what? If I have Alzheimer's and I go into a facility, I'm still going to want, if I'm able to, have my spaghetti dinner with a glass of wine. Why not? So my personal care plan directs my son and daughter to make sure if dad goes into a facility that he's given the newspaper every day, because I like to read the newspaper. That I'm put in a position where I can watch baseball on TV, because I like to do that. Where I'm fed, my spaghetti dinner with a glass of wine. And a lot of people will smile when I say this and they laugh, but this is life. I mean, and even though I'm diagnosed with Alzheimer's or dementia, why, if that's what makes me happy, why not live like that? My personal care plan even says, if I'm able to participate in family functions without becoming a spectacle, that I want to go to birthdays or anniversaries or dinners if I'm able to come out of the facility to do that. That I want to be pushed in a wheelchair outside to be in the sunshine. I mean, I'm a triathlete. I love being outside. So if I'm ever, God forbid, confined to a wheelchair, I'd kind of like to be pushed out into the sunshine and enjoy that. So why not have a document in place that says that? Because otherwise, if you don't have a document in place that says that, what do you think happens in most of these facilities? The people sit there in a community room doing whatever. And who knows what's going on in their mind? Why not have something in place to make their life a little bit better? So again, if you're concerned about having documents in place to plan for a period of incapacity or disability, it's important to address that. And at the bottom, there'll be a link where you can contact me to discuss what's important to protecting you and your family.